In terms of the benefits that Alston Moor has gained from the Cybermoor project, they're up here. About 25 full-time equivalent jobs. A study was done, as a report in the the Sunday Times, that they reckon because of the quality of broadband here, it had had an effect to increase local prices of houses by about 25% above the anticipated norm. We have a recognised national profile for Alston Moor and for Cybermoor. We win awards. The last one was last year from the Independent Service Provider Association, and it was between us and a small organisation called Vodafone, and they came second. We are quoted an exemplar of best practice. It sounds good, I'm not quite certain we always are, but we try. It has encouraged further investments in the community, as you heard right at the introduction this morning. You know, we've got a high intensity of social enterprises here. I think that because a number of the people who are involved in Cybermoor are also involved in some or one or more of those other projects. So therefore, there is the snowball effect that was said earlier. New opportunities, new potential income, etc. The theme of this side of this part of the presentation is really, do you buy it in or do you use it locally? As far as I'm concerned, there's not really much of a choice. You shouldn't really be thinking about buying in services. By all means, buying the equipment like what Dominic or the guys from MTEL were talking about. We don't expect to manufacture our own fibre optic cable, we don't expect to manufacture our own wireless equipment, but we are genuinely committed to using local people, local resources. And if we don't have the right skills, we will put the training in. So therefore, if you're in a community you're thinking, well, we don't have anybody who knows what to do, somewhere or other you've probably got somebody in the not too far away position that they put TV aerials up. So that means that they could do this, and with a bit of training, they could do this. But you've got to make certain that you put the right training in, because this is probably somebody just screwing something on the outside their own house. That's perfectly legitimate. This isn't, and so the person's got to have a working at height licence, they've got to have the relevant insurance, etc. But even if initially it appears to cost more money, I would advocate that you're better off invested in those local resources, because that may create a job opportunity for that person to go off and do some work somewhere else. Skills. This is a local guy. He happened to come along with a partial qualification. In other words, he'd used one of these machines but didn't have a licence. We put him on the course, got the licence, etc. I mean, if this was digging his own garden, you can hire one of these and do what you like. He's digging up the side of the road to put the trench in for the fibre optic cable. So therefore, we, Cybermoor, carry the insurance that we are employing labour-only subcontractors, and then we hire the equipment and we pay the man, and he works on a self-employed basis. And that's the way I think we should be doing it. You know, if you're going to do this up the side of the road, you've already told, that was the guy, he and one other person put that in, and I think you can't say that they haven't made a very good job of it. This is the mast on the top of Mount Hooley. It's 30 metres tall. When we did the survey that determined this is what we needed to have, and we found where to buy it from and everything else, for whatever reason, we didn't give a lot of thought as to how we were going to erect it. It turns out there's only 2 cranes in the country that will climb up the track up the side of Mount Hooley and have the boom to be able to reach 30 metres. And so we only found this out with only a few weeks to go. Fortunately for us, TRS, the people who make the mast, said, well, that's okay, we'll supply you a self-erector mast. And what happens is you get 2 guys who turn up and they assemble this in bits, and then they drag the next section up the side of the mast and bolt it together, and they keep on going until they got to the top. I wouldn't do it. We supplied local support labour because they needed 2 erectors to do it, and we supplied 3 or 4 people who went up there and held the guy ropes and helped with the pulleys and all the rest of the stuff. So we did use local resources. I would not necessarily advocate that it would have been worth us trying to put people through riggers courses and all the rest of it to put that one mast up. It doesn't make sense. But if you're in a community or some sort of area where you're going to put a whole bunch of masts up, you might choose that option and say, well, we will put some investment in. If any of you ever get a chance to go up the top of Mount Hooley on a bright sunny day, you know, there's a 90-mile-an-hour wind up there. How the hell have they ever got 100 feet up in the air? So how can we help other communities? And here's my onion. Customers are on the outside. If we take a community such as Weird Owl, we will have one or more people based in Weird Owl who know their communities, who will be the first point of contact for the customers. So when people ring in, they've got problems, questions, complaints, or they want to join or whatever, they are the first, that person is the first point of contact with the customers. That is Jenny Snowden over here. We will provide the training and the help and support for that customer, for the individual, and behind that we will give them the help. So in other words, that if they get faced with a problem which they can't deal with, or they may be getting flustered or whatever else it is, then they can route the call through to our office, where the chances are we've got a better ability to deal with it, we've had it before, more confidence. So in other words, there's that layer of reinforcement to give people confidence that that they can go ahead and have the confidence to do this work. Local technical support. We have an amount of resources that we've got. Our own people have been trained to go up and put things up masts. If we know there's a problem with a particular piece of equipment that's failed or something, then we will use the local people to go out and replace that equipment or whatever else it is. If it turns out that the fault appears not to be simple, then we can fall back on the Cybermoor technical support, which in this case is Northgate Systems Limited. And the big advantage of that Azatel system is that if we had a number of communities all over the country, all over the world, the Northgate guys could actually see every single community and reach in and say, yes, we can see what's wrong with that. We can either reset it, or you need to go out and change a local point or do something or whatever else it is. Each of those local communities, unless we give them permission, will not be able to see all the others. So you can't have somebody down in Cornwall messing around with the network up in Alston or whatever else it is. Only the people who've got the relevant permissions to get in and see it. The big advantage is that if we have a significant problem, as we did about 15 months ago with some Proxim equipment, we had a problem. Our technical people were convinced that it was a Proxim fault. Proxim said it's not us. Proxim have a European support office in The Hague and a US support office somewhere in the States. They said, we can't reproduce your fault, so it's your problem. And we spent a lot of time until eventually we managed to put enough data together and sent it across to Proxim that they put the effort in and eventually said, we're really sorry, we can reproduce the fault. It is our problem, we will issue an upgrade of the software. That costs us a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of hassle with the people. The advantage of the Azatel system is that on a timed basis, we can give Proxim access to see what's going on. We can say, there's the problem, you can see what the problem is, we think it's yours. That shortens the solutions process and takes it away from us and gives it to the people who should be dealing with it, because Proxim know their equipment better than Proxim. Ubiquity is the same, etc. So it's a layered approach. So inside everything else, we've got the supplier support. So that's the sort of the principle of the service we're suggesting we'll provide. In summary, local resources creates local jobs, builds community support, provides an ongoing resource base. If the people who support the network are actually working in the community, it makes a tie for the other people in the community to say, well, actually, I'll stick with them. If it's BT, and I know Simon's just come back in again, but you know, that's a bunch of people coming from outside. There isn't that community loyalty, and we think it's critical in these sorts of groups to build on that resource. Accidents happen. Delays. I don't mean catastrophic accidents. Things just happen. You do it wrong. You don't have the right amount of knowledge or training, and you break something you're not supposed to that an outside contractor wouldn't do. But that's just part of the learning curve. The trick is not to let them break the same thing twice. So don't make the same fault twice. Sometimes your costs overrun what you think they ought to do. They often overrun what you think they ought to do because you can't get the time estimates. The guy who was in the digger there said it was his recommendation that he would install 8 kilometres of fibre optic cable in 2 months? 4 months. Yeah. 2 blokes with shovels in 4 months. It actually took us about 9 months, and we use trenching and we use mini diggers and whatever else it is. So if we'd have based our bid on, I mean, it was over ambitious, but if we based our bid on that, we would have been mildly out, a long way out. So, you know, you need to recognise that. But that's part of the learning process. If you invest that money in their local community, then that knowledge stays with you. It doesn't mean just because you bring an outside contractor in that they're going to be that much better. They may learn at your expense and then they go away. So, you know, I am an advocate of that. You do need a capable local project manager. If any of you watch things like Sarah Beanie's programmes on the television and say, well, or Grand Designs, we don't have a project manager, that's okay, you know, the wife makes cakes, so she'll be a project manager. I didn't mean to be, you know, pejorative of women there, but you know what I mean, oh, well, that's easy to be a project manager. No, it's not. So you do need to have a local project manager who knows what's going on. Outside resources, you might get increased confidence, you will get higher costs, and it may be more of a challenge to gain funding support. Because if you're getting funding from your local county council, district council, whatever else is, it attracts them if you are using local resources. Finally, as we've said all the way through, we're here to help if we can. So, thank you.